Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Grey Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's 11th of October 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I think this was the biggest news, right, over the weekend. This picture, or these couple of pictures, were shared by Ben Edgington on Twitter. I think it was maybe Saturday morning for me when I woke up. I saw this, but basically, the Ethereum 2.0 merge interop DevNet was confirmed. The DevNets that I was talking about last week with regards to the merge and the interoperability between them all. I think there were 3 or 4 execution layer clients or consensus layer clients and 3 execution layer clients all talking to each other, which is obviously a huge milestone. You can see in the picture here a bunch, not all, but a bunch of the Ethereum 1 and 2 core developers and researchers all kind of like celebrating here. I mean, this picture, as I commented here, reminded me of like a space shuttle launch, right? Where you see all the kind of like NASA scientists in the celebrating and clapping when a launch goes right, and that's exactly what's happening here. This is just absolutely huge. I mean, I'm pretty sure this DevNet is still live today. Like, it hasn't been shut down yet. I think so. I remember seeing like there was a fork monitor that I was watching that kind of like had information about this, but essentially just absolutely amazing that this was all done. I'm sure you all saw the kind of like screenshots from last week that I was also sharing on the Refuel of people putting on Twitter, and I retweeted all of them. But it culminated in this essentially. And I remember saying last week that we'd see these dev nets, we'd see these test nets going live, and I don't have any kind of like indication of when the merge is going to go through still. I'm still betting on late Q1, early Q2 next year. I'm not betting on an early Q1 kind of launch here. I just don't think that's realistic from where we are today. And I also think that there's still a bit of things or a bit of kinks to iron out with stuff from what I've read. But Tim Byko said that there would be more information coming this week. I'm sure he's probably going to write a recap of what happened, what work is left to do, kind of like maybe a target window. You can see him in the picture here. He's front and center there taking a photo. And then, we'll get more information from him probably this week. So I'll be sure to cover that. But how exciting, guys. Like, seriously. I was thinking about this today, actually. I'm like, how many things do Ethereans have to look forward to, really, at the end of the day? I mean, we had 1559 go live, and that's all been well and good, and 500,000 ETH has been burned, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. But after that, it's not like, okay, what's next? I always think about this with the Bitcoin community. They get so excited about the halvening, and then once the halvening happens, it's kind of like, okay, well, what do we do now, right? There's not really anything else to look forward to in my eyes. Whereas with Ethereum, we had 1559 go live, which was effectively like a halvening because the net supply is 50% less than what it was. So it effectively was a halvening for Ethereum. But not just that, like, immediately after 1559 went live, like, everyone started talking about the merge, and layer 2s were coming online. We had the kind of like Arbitrum go live, and Optimism start onboarding more apps, and, recently we've had Starknet, or Starkware say that Starknet's going to go live on mainnet in an alpha version very soon. So, really, I mean, there's no shortage of things for us Ethereans to look forward to, and, even outside of kind of like the core dev stuff, like, or the kind of the core stuff, like, obviously the merge and sharding and layer 2s and things like that. It's also the application layer that's just seems to be steaming ahead. I mean, for those of you who may have been paying attention, DeFi is actually making a pretty big comeback, and it's not in the areas that you think it is. Like, there's kind of 2 segments of DeFi right now. There's like the old DeFi or Gen 1 DeFi, your makers and your yearns and your kind of like Uniswaps and Sushi Swaps and all that of the world. And you have like your Gen 2 DeFi. There's a bunch of these projects like Spell or MIM, or I think it was called Abracadabra Money or something like that. Rari Capital, Olympus Finance with the OM token. So there seems to be a bunch of these kind of like, going up in value, people getting really excited about them. And it's just funny because it's like, it feels like Gen 1 DeFi is apparently now Boomer DeFi, which is just hilarious to me that, it's not even that old, right? And it's still like, it's not like these Gen 1 protocols are sitting on their laurels doing nothing. They're still making lots of different updates, releasing lots of different things for their products. So it's just funny how that's kind of like happening there. But again, that's more stuff for people to look forward to. And then the NFT space, of course. And even beyond kind of like the next couple years, you have so much other stuff coming to Ethereum and stuff that we can't even think of right now. So This is just like super exciting for me, of course, and it's super exciting for the Ethereum community because this has been a super long time coming. If you really wanted to, you could stretch the development of kind of, I guess, like the merge or the event of the merge all the way back to late 2013 when Vitalik first published the Ethereum white paper, kind of like announced Ethereum at, I think it was at Bitcoin Miami, actually, one of the Bitcoin events. I'm pretty sure he was talking about proof of stake as early as then. So the fact that like the merge will officially get Ethereum as kind of like a network to proof of stake and proof of stake only, because right now obviously you have the two networks running side by side. That is a lot of, like, by the time it goes live 2022, say Q2, that'll have been 8 years or something like that. Probably more than that. Actually, maybe 9 years. Oh no, it'd be about eight and a little bit of years from when Vitalik started talking about it. Ethereum being full proof of stake to when it happened. And you might think like, oh wow, it took so long. Like that's bearish. I don't think so at all. I think what ended up happening was that proof of stake, it has existed for quite a while. I think Peercoin was the first one to do it, but there's been a lot of issues with proof of stake over the years. You had the nothing at stake problem, you had the long range attack problem. They had to come up with slashing for that. Then you have the fork choice rule, like how does the network decide which kind of like fork to follow if there's a fork in the network and stuff like that. And slashing and kind of like all these different mechanisms came into it with Ethereum's Casper design. So Casper, the friendly finality gadget, is Ethereum's proof of stake fork choice rule. But from there, you also had the development that needed to happen. You needed test nets to go live. You needed people to be very confident that this thing that was going to hold billions of dollars of value, and then once the merge goes through, secure like trillions of dollars of value each year, it needs to be right. It needs to be correct. So that's why it took so long to get to this point. And at the same time, it's a matter of kind of like human resources as well. Like, think about how many people were working on Ethereum back then compared to now. It was barely anyone. Now you have thousands, tens of thousands of people working on this sort of stuff. And even if they're not working directly on the core development side, they're still working within it. They're doing research for it. They're publishing research papers. They're publishing blog posts, education around it. There's funding for it too. So, you can't just kind of look back and say, oh, well, it's taken a long time. Yes, and think that's bearish. Yes, it's taken quite a while, but I would actually say that it's happening much faster than I thought it would, to be honest. Like, I thought things, I mean, especially around sharding. Like, I actually think sharding could be delivered as early as like late next year, early 2023. I thought sharding was going to probably take longer than that. And the layer 2 is obviously coming online. I spoke about the other day how Starkware bringing Starknet to mainnet in November is like way quicker than anyone even anticipated. And it seems like the Starkware team has a point to prove here, because people were like, oh, it's going to take you years to get there. We're bearish on it in the short term. Whereas Starkware's just like, no, it's not going to take us years to get there. We're going to do it very, very soon, and they're doing it much sooner than anyone predicted, which is pretty awesome as well. So just so many things to look forward to. I'm pumped as hell lately, really. I mean, I'm not just pumped because of crypto stuff. I'm also pumped because I finally got double vaccinated after waiting so long, because Australia's rollout has just been atrocious of the vaccines, but also like lockdowns are ending soon for me as well, so I get to actually go out and experience the bit of sunshine for for a bit. But I'm just excited in general that like this is all happening. Stuff in real life's happening, and I get to travel again. And I haven't traveled since February of 2020. And the funny thing is that by the time I get to travel again, it's probably going to be going to ETH Denver in February next year, and that's the last conference I went to in 2020. So it'll be like 2 years since I went, and it's just funny how it'll be a little reunion there. But yeah, I'm planning to travel a lot next year, so I'll keep you guys updated on that too, because you can probably do meetups depending on where we go. And I really do want to do like a Melbourne-based meetup once lockdown ends as well, with all the Australian peeps that listen to this. I know there's a fair few of us, especially in the Discord channel. Definitely want to kind of just go get a drink or something and talk Ethereum. That'd be really cool. But anyway, I'm going off a little bit of a tangent there. Sigma Prime put together a tweet thread about the merge as well, and kind of like the event that happened last week, the Merge Interoperability event. So you can go read this to get more context around it. I mean, it was pretty cool. There's links and screenshots and all that good stuff. It's basically a summary, so definitely go check that out. Proto Lambda has built a experimental block explorer fork for for the merge here, so you can check this out. I mean, you can see the screenshot here. It's pretty cool to see that these tools are already kind of like kind of being published and happening. And then finally, Ben Edgington also put together his latest What's New in ETH2 update, which covers things like Altair, which is going live soon on the ETH2 network or the Beacon Chain network. If you haven't updated your nodes yet, or your clients, or your validators, whatever you want to call them, definitely update them. And again, if you're in the capacity to do so, switch to a minority client. So if you're running Prism, switch to something else to improve network health. Is probably the perfect time to do it when there's a major network upgrade coming along. He also talked about Rocket Pool's delay, which I mentioned last week. And also the merge as well, because he was at the merge workshop, I believe. So he's got links to like so much stuff here as well. So definitely go give this a read. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. And finally, ETH Global is going to be hosting an ETH Online Finale plus Merge Scalability Summit on Friday, October 15th. So you'll be able to catch talks from Marius van der Wijen. I don't know how to say your last name. Wyden. I think the J might be silent there. Sorry if I got that wrong. And Vitalik Buterin, and Vitalik, of course, and Celebrate as they announced the finalists from over 1,100 hackers that have participated in the ETH Online hackathon. I'm going to be judging this week, actually, so I'm always really excited about seeing what people have built, but this should be cool to tune into on Friday as well. But anyway, that's enough about the merge. Super exciting stuff happening, of course, and really, really just great to see the progress being made there. And I mentioned before, 500,000 ETH has now been burned. 500,000 ETH. Like, it just keeps going, guys. Like, I mean, right now, I think it's like 8,000 ETH a day being burned, which is crazy. I mean, if I look over at my little iPad here, it's 5.2 ETH per minute right now just being burned. Crazy amount. I mean, just to contextualize that a bit, 5.2 ETH, so 5 ETH times what? It's 3,600 right now. Head math, let's just say it's 20k a minute being burned of ETH. Like, that's crazy amounts of money being burned. And, you know, this is just the beginning. I mean, we also have, obviously, the merge bringing with it that supply shock with the 90% reduction in issuance and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, the fact that we've already burned so much, and it's been 66 days, I believe, since 1559 went live. So not very long. Annualized, this is like millions of ETH being burned. And the funny thing is, it's not just like, obviously 1559 brought in the ETH burn, but it's not just that people are excited about. It's also the fact that, I mean, I haven't had to speed up a transaction in a long time when I'm doing transactions on Ethereum now, which is so awesome. Like, I could just put the transaction through and it goes through no worries, you know, most of the time. Like, obviously there'll be some periods of time, I think 5 to 10% of the time, where you might have to speed up the transaction, or you might have to wait a little bit for it to go through in a block, but most of the time mine seem to be going through really well. And I talked about last week how Coinbase published a blog post that said that they actually saved, I think, about 9%, maybe something like 7 to 9% on gas fees, thanks to 1559, which is incredible as well. And they've burned a healthy chunk of ETH by doing that as well. So, yeah, super exciting that 500,000 ETH has been burned in such a short amount of time. And I'm sure, you know, we'll be seeing much more of this as time goes on here. All right, so more talk about the monolithic versus modular blockchains. I think I'm going to keep beating this drum, so just a fair warning here. I'm going to be talking about this a lot on the Refuel and on Twitter for the next probably few months at least, because I really think that more people need to kind of like clue into what's happening here. And I think at this point probably less than 1,000 people actually know what's going on, and most of those people are probably the developers and researchers that have been working on this for quite a while. In terms of community members, I would say Refuel listeners and watchers are the most clued in people when it comes to this sort of stuff, because I've been talking about it recently. But, you know, don't fret if you're not kind of like sure exactly what this is and kind of like what this is about and how this is all going to play out. I'm not going to claim that I know how this is going to play out. I'm just placing one of the biggest bets that I've placed in my time in this ecosystem. My biggest bet was buying a lot of ETH in 2019 when it was really, really not cool to do so. But my next biggest bet is basically placing bets on the modular blockchain era. So, I mean, this tweet I put out where I said the monolithic blockchain era was from 2016 to 2021. Now, what I mean by a monolithic blockchain is a blockchain that tries to do everything at layer 1. And we've seen plenty of these come out over the years, right? Like Ethereum was one until recently. And technically, I mean, it still is kind of like one until sharding is in place, where sharding actually gets us to the proper kind of like modular paradigm there. But all the other L1s pretty much are monolithic blockchains. They can pivot to being modular if they want, but right now they're monolithic. And, you know, I don't think Bitcoin is. I think Bitcoin can be considered modular. It doesn't try to do anything at layer 1. It's pushing everything off chain, right? Everything to whether it be a side chain or like the Lightning Network. It's not doing anything at layer 1, which I think, To be honest, like I actually don't think Bitcoin is the best design. I think Ethereum is the best design because I think you should be able to do some stuff at layer one still, especially verifying proofs and storing core data. But they're just taking a different kind of like approach there, which is fine. And then I said like then the modular blockchain era is 2021 plus. Like from here on out, I just don't believe we're going to be seeing any new L1s spin up, and if they do spin up, they're going to be very kind of like very small L1s. They're not going to be anything serious. And then I go on to say in the tweet, we are quite literally witnessing a paradigm shift in blockchain architecture that will change this ecosystem forever. And I've mentioned plenty of times on the Refuel that we're going to be seeing L2 spin up instead of L1s, because really logically, think about it for a sec. Like just to add more context here, because it's always good to think about it from first principles. If you're a developer or if you're a kind of like a team and you want to start like a new platform, you want to have like people building on you, you think you can do it better than anyone else, traditionally you would have launched a layer one blockchain. And that would have been fine. You get some investors, you have a token, you set up like a bunch of like staking infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. You build out a community, whatever. But like pretty much all the other layer ones are so far behind Ethereum, it's not even funny. I'm not even just talking about adoption. I'm talking about security and decentralizations. None of them even come close, like besides Bitcoin, but like excluding Bitcoin. We won't even mention Bitcoin in this discussion. None of the other smart contract chains come close to Ethereum in that regard. So if you're wanting to launch one of these new chains, what do? Do you pick a layer one, which is much harder to bootstrap because you have to kind of like get your own security, you have to get your own consensus, you have to get your own kind of like data availability and all that sort of stuff? Or do you kind of think to yourself, well, I can just outsource all of that to Ethereum. I'll just build this L2 thing. I can do whatever I want off-chain with this L2. I can do anything I want on the execution layer. I can have any smart contract, any programming language I want. I can have any virtual machine I want. I'm not limited by Ethereum anymore, but I still inherit all of Ethereum's security and to an extent its decentralization as well. So to me, the logical conclusion is just to launch a layer 2. It is much easier. It has much less resistance than launching your own layer 1. You inherit Ethereum's security and network effect. You inherit Ethereum's community. And all you have to do is pay to put your proofs on the Ethereum main chain. And you don't have to pay for it yourself. If your layer 2 is actually that good, people are going to come and use it. They're going to pay to use it. And in aggregate, you generate fee revenue, which then you use to pay for layer 1 security. So that's kind of like how I see this world playing out, and that's where I'm placing all of my bets. Literally, I have not been this bullish about something in a very long time, since ETH, basically. And I have not been putting, as much money into something as I have into this. Like, I didn't even put this much money and time into DeFi or into NFTs. I'm putting as much as I can into this sort of stuff. And maybe some of you are wondering, like, how do you bet on this? Well, I mean, buying ETH is one way, and of course, this is an investment advice, but there's obviously buying ETH, and then there's kind of like investing in the infrastructure building around the modular blockchain era. That being bridges, because it's obviously we're going to need bridges in this era. Layer 2s, I know a lot of them don't have tokens. I've been through this before. I'm not going to rehash it there, but that's kind of like another play. And on top of that, also, you can kind of like farm airdrops too if you want. Like, I know there was a lot of controversy around airdrops over the weekend about the Ribbon Finance airdrop that insiders were basically farming it. And basically they had information ahead of time that that there was going to be an airdrop, and they farmed it all, and there was so much drama around it. And if you listen to my AMA, I think it was like not last AMA, maybe the AMA before, I did warn you guys that this sort of stuff is very prevalent within the crypto industry. There is insider trading, dealings, stuff going on everywhere. So I wasn't even surprised when I saw this. I was like, yeah, I know this happens everywhere all the time, and people are taking advantage of it because why wouldn't they? This stuff isn't regulated. The SEC can't actually go after these people because it's not technically insider trading, because these things aren't securities, right? So it was just public shaming from the community, and I obviously don't agree with what the people did when they farmed this sort of stuff, but again, that's a tangent there. You can take advantage of this sort of stuff. Like, just assume everything's going to have an airdrop and use the products. Don't try to game it by kind of like creating lots and lots of different accounts and then expecting a massive airdrop. You can try to do that, but I think at this point in time, a lot of teams are going to be kind of like cautious of that, and they're going to have different ways to kind of weed those people out. So it may just end up with you wasting money on gas fees to do this, or wasting your time. But you can go and do it if you want. But I guess that's just another way to get exposure to these sorts of things. And then really, it's funny because like I don't hold any other layer 1 tokens, and I don't plan to ever, really. I don't plan to buy any of them. I don't plan to speculate on any of them. But I can see over the next few years the market maybe wising up to the fact that these kind of like if modular blockchains become like a strong narrative, wising up to the fact that this is the path forward. Maybe there's a lot of value or a lot of kind of like money that flows into these layer one networks that pivot to being modular blockchains. So I already know of a few of them. I would never buy these tokens. I would never tell anyone to buy these tokens, and generally I just don't think they're good investments. But there's a bunch of them out there right now that are pivoting to this, or at least realizing that like the modular blockchain or the rollup centric roadmap is the best path forward. But again, I know it's hard to bet on these things, but there are ways to do so, and there's going to be more ways in the future to do it as well, I'm sure. Again, we're still so early with this sort of stuff. I expect the winning L2s to be $100 billion plus networks. I expect ETH to be a $10 trillion network. So, I mean, even if you just buy ETH, there's still a $10 trillion network. That's more than a 20x from here. I mean, like, come on. Like, I mean, a 20x is amazing. And if for something like ETH, which I consider to be the safest thing you can buy right now, along with BTC. So, yeah, from that perspective, if you're finding it hard to kind of like pick and choose winners, then I don't know, I'd just buy ETH. But like, again, that's not investment advice, but you guys know I buy ETH all the time. So I don't hide that. But anyway, there's another thing that I wanted to talk about that was from Polynow that relates to this. But before I do that, if you want a full breakdown of kind of like the modular blockchain stuff, I did a live stream with David Hoffman at Bankless the other day. We actually didn't plan to talk about modular stuff the whole time, but we did. We ended up talking about it for most of it. And we talked not just about kind of like the modular blockchain era, but how Ethereum fits into it and how kind of like Ethereum culture fits into it and how this is what we've been working towards for quite a while. So go watch this. It's on YouTube and it's also in podcast format as well, the Bankless podcast. I'm sure a lot of you have already watched and listened to it, but I highly recommend doing so because of the fact that it goes into much more detail about this sort of stuff. All right, I told you guys I had another tweet from Polynow to go through. We're continuing our streak of featuring Polynow on every single refuel. But anyway, they said, the difference between monolithic and modular blockchains is greater than the difference between 90s era 56K dial-up and gigabit fiber. Except you don't have to wait decades. It's happening right now and will accelerate over the coming years, not decades. 1 million x scalability, 1 million times scalability in less than 10 years. So 90s era 56K dial-up is what Ethereum Layer 1 is today. It is super slow, super expensive, does not scale to the world. Lots of people complain about it, even though they're using it, right? They're complaining about it because of all the aforementioned stuff. Now, broadband would be something like kind of like a step up from that. And I would say broadband might be optimistic rollups where they're limited in scalability compared to something like ZK rollups, but they're kind of like an interim solution, right? A short to medium term solution. I think that they're going to be around for a while, and I think that they can actually improve themselves and get to a point where they're not equivalent to ZK rollups, but good enough, right? And can offer things that the ZK rollups can't, at least in the short to medium term. But the gigabit fiber is those ZK rollups that can basically scale to millions of TPS eventually, as kind of like Polynow has kind of gone through before. By 2030, getting to 15 million TPS on chain with ZK rollups, and then you have Validiums and Volitions that you throw into the mix that get you even more TPS at the cost of some security, of course. So again, people need to realize how big of a jump this is in blockchain architecture. I don't know how many times I can say it that I haven't been this excited about something since I first discovered Ethereum. Not many things get me going like this. Really, I mean, I can't remember a time I've been this excited. And that's why I've put out plenty of tweets lately just trying to hammer home this. And I know you're probably going to get sick of me saying this, but I really just want you guys to kind of like take this in and realize what's going on here, because I mean, one of my goals with the Daily Gwei is to keep you on the forefront of not just, what's happening within, I guess, the Ethereum ecosystem day to day, but the larger kind of macro trends and how they're all going to play into things over the next few years. Because to be honest, I want to be able to look back on these videos in a few years and kind of like think to myself, wow, I was able to kind of like get this right, and I was able to share this information with other people who were able to take advantage of this information and also improve themselves, whether that be socially, financially, whether they got involved with this sort of stuff and kind of, built it out. That's kind of like one of my main goals with the Daily Gwei. So, Again, like Polynar, of course, is the pioneer here. They're the one that brought it to my attention first, and I've just been enamored by the stuff they've put out around this, and just trying to like parse it myself and then pass it on to you guys so that you guys can kind of absorb it too. But anyway, I'm going to end that sort of stuff there. There's a few other updates to get through before today's episode wraps up. So Polygon, I missed this the other day. On the Polygon POS chain, you can now swap I think it's any token or kind of like some tokens for Matic without having Matic first. So this is kind of like gasless swapping on the Polygon POS chain. Now, I've run into this problem before where I've run out of Matic tokens when I've been doing stuff on the POS chain, and I had to basically go to a centralized exchange or go to my wallet on Ethereum and then bridge across Matic tokens again. And it's expensive bridging from Ethereum, and then from a centralized exchange, it can be expensive too, depending on how they charge you for fees. So now you can basically go here and you could swap. I think they're currently supporting ETH DAI USDT gaslessly for Matic tokens, so that you can basically get some Matic and go do whatever you want on the Polygon POS chain. This is really, really cool. I really enjoy this. Obviously, I would probably prefer if the POS chain just used ETH as the native gas token, but it doesn't right now, and this is just like kind of the next best thing. So yeah, for any of those who use the POS chain, this is a really nifty tool. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. Speaking of gas, there's a lot of people who asked me questions about this and wanted me to cover this. I spoke to the Polygon team, and then they put out this thread because I said to them, "Hey, there's a lot of concerns around this recent change. I'd love to be able to answer these questions for my community." But essentially, what the change was that the Polygon POS chain clients were recommended to kind of like update their minimum gas price setting to 30 Gwei. So that was, I think, 30x the minimum before. This is an optional change. I want to make that clear. This was not put into the core protocol itself. This was a client level change where the clients, the validators, could decide to do this or not. There are validators that could take cheaper fees if they wanted to, but the recommended setting was to combat spam was to basically have it at 30 Gwei. Now at 30 Gwei, this is Gwei in Matic price. This is not Gwei in ETH price. So 30 Gwei with Matic at what, $1.30 I think right now, is still much less than if it was 30 Gwei with ETH, like in dollar terms, of course, because the Matic price is obviously much lower than the ETH price. So I just wanted to make it clear that this was only a client side thing. This is not put into the core protocol itself. But this is why it was done. I mean, to combat spam as well, because I don't know about you guys, but I have so much crappy NFTs being sent to my Polygon addresses. It's kind of annoying. And there's a lot of this spam going on because transactions are really cheap. And people are just like doing, and the funny thing is, like, gas fees are actually a way to have like Sybil resistance, where it basically prevents people from spamming the network because it's too expensive to do so. But on these cheaper networks, it becomes much harder to do that. So this is why this change was put in place. So, I just wanted to kind of like shout that out there. So few people asking about this, and of course you can kind of like read this full thread in this forum post. It'll be linked in the YouTube description for you to check out. All right, so Alchemix. I haven't spoken about Alchemix in a little while, but they had a major update over the weekend where they posted their roadmap. So their roadmap's pretty cool. I really like it. So basically, they get kind of launching Alchemix V2 soon, and they kind of go into detail about what's happening there. But they also go into the detail about how they're going to decentralize the Alchemix DAO, what comes in the V2 modules, as well as their kind of multi-chain approach. So what other chains they're going to be kind of like deploying to, which is essentially all EVM compatible chains. You can see Arbitrum here, the Polygon POS chain, and some other ones as well, like Phantom and Avalanche and stuff like that. I'm sure Optimism will be on there too when they can do Optimism. As I mentioned before, Alchemix has a lot of dependencies, so they can't exactly launch on networks that don't have the supporting infrastructure, like Curve and Yearn, for example. And they also have new synthetic products coming out, like ALBTC and a bunch of others that they haven't kind of like revealed yet. So if you want to get the full details of all that's going on, definitely check out this kind of blog post. It goes into more detail than I will on the refuel, but it's great to see Alchemix pushing out this roadmap kind of like update, because they've been a little bit quiet. I think they've just been heads down building for a little while here, and the fact that they're going kind of like multi-chain and going to cheaper chains and layer 2s is really, really important for them, because I think they definitely want to appeal to the smaller user as well, and give the smaller user a kind of like a way to essentially just take those self-repaying loans, which is the main draw of Alchemix. But right now, a lot of that is, a lot of those users are priced out of Ethereum layer 1, but because Alchemix has so many dependencies, it's hard for them to move to different chains without kind of like the other projects moving there first. So yeah, they're going to just be slower than other projects are to go, down this multi-chain path here. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.